Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments. I'm home. We have 4 new decks. Let's get to it. By the way, if you're wondering which the thumbnail deck is because you haven't seen it right on screen, that's always going to be deck 2. We do 4 decks a day. We're going to kick it off with Ika's Scream Jun. This is a Scream Legion deck. I know it looks like Scream going, but this is a Scream Legion deck. It is absolutely incredible. This is a Scream deck built to absolutely answer the meta. I wanted to make sure I got this out there, not only because it's great right now, but also because this is an absolutely incredible deck into the current hot location right now in Marvel Snap. So if you're looking to climb, this is a deck for you to go get right now and play. You can find the creator of this deck at twitch.tv/Ika_MTS. He had like a 63% win rate with this as soon as he created it. This is one of the top win rate decks at High Infinite right now. The only needed cards for this list are Scream and Cannonball. Those will be, by the way, coming in a bundle together later next month. If you're interested in checking out that bundle, last week I released a bundle guide video for every Series 4 and 5 bundle, for every bundle that has Series 4 and 5 cards. So if you want to check that out, please do. It'll go over the value of that Scream Cannonball bundle. This deck does not need Hydra Bob. That can be Kingpin or Nebula. There's a version that's relatively close in win rate with Nebula. Kingpin was in these lists for a very long time. Sam Wilson can be Iron Patriot. I know that's another high series replacement, but if you bought Iron Patriot, you didn't buy Sam, you should be totally fine here. It makes Craven a little worse, but the list still works. Rocket and Groot can be Juggernaut. Juggernaut is incredible and was in these lists for frickin' ever before getting recently cut. And Legion can be either Arrow or Magneto. The big innovations here from Ika are adding both Luke Cage and Legion to the list. Outside of this, this is a standard list, but so much of the meta right now is Scream deck. Scream has become the deck to beat, that you having a Luke Cage in this mirror matchup is very often a win condition. In addition, Legion lets you scam wins over Arrow or Magneto. You don't need necessarily that extra power with all the different ways to scale and disrupt your opponent here. So instead, an extra way to scam wins, an extra way to steal wins from Legion is incredibly, incredibly strong. This deck has a 65% win rate at High Infinite. Turn 1, you want to play Hydra Bob. It's the only one drop you have. Turn 2, you'd like to play Scream. Scream on her own is a snap condition on turn 2. Yes, she's going to get beat sometimes. Yes, she's sometimes going to get Red Guardian. She's still a snap condition. Her win rate per Glenn Jones was similar to that of a her win rate on play specifically is similar to that of an on play Mr. Negative. I want you to think about how powerful Mr. Negative is when he's played. Scream has that type of win rate on play, which means that Scream is an absolute, absolute snap condition in this list. If you get Red Guardian, fine, you'll run for 2 instead of 1 as necessary. You want Sam Wilson on turn 2, otherwise, and if not, you'll play Craven. Turn 3, if you played Scream, you would like to Polaris and immediately start triggering Scream. If you played Sam, you're aiming for Craven, so now you can start ping-ponging the shield for extra power. If you played Craven, Polaris, immediately get that power. And if you're not sure which to do, you're perfectly fine playing Rocket and Groot. Rocket and Groot is just an excellent standard play here. It helps control where your opponents play cards, which is really good because you're going to move where they're playing their cards. There's like a mini, every move deck has sort of a mini clog theme, thanks to Rocket and Groot, Polaris, and Stegron, and you're going to try to take advantage of that. Turn 4 is generally speaking a 2/2. This is the Spider-Man 2. If you've got that going, even if you're dropping Scream now, that's still a snap condition. If you've got Sam and Craven, or one of the 2 with Spider-Man, and you played a different 2 on turn 2, that's fairly often going to be a snap as well. So be ready to snap around then. You're disrupting your opponent. Your opponent's not going to have much say over where their cards are being positioned, and you should be able to take advantage of that for enough power, especially, again, if you got the key card of Scream out, even up to this point. The other play for turn 4 is you could just drop Stegron. Feel free to just drop a Stegron. Stegron's a very powerful card. Turn 5, you're looking for Stegron and Miles. You can also drop Legion here. You can drop Cannonball. I don't suggest it. A 3 and a 2 is fine if you just top decked into one of your important 2s as well. Getting Craven out even this late can end up giving you a 2/7 worth of power. Turn 6, you want a Cannonball and a 1. Ideally, you use some of your movers to clog a location, which means Cannonball is going to be an auto win. If you're aware that's going to happen, Cannonball is a snap condition. Basically, as soon as you can tell that that is what's going to happen. You're going to play Cannonball along with either Hydra Bob or the moved Miles Morales for a 1/6, and at that point, you've won. One last look at this. We're going to talk about Redwing momentarily. This list is absolutely, absolutely, without any question, an incredible list. This is one of the best lists in Marvel Snap, and it's really just a standard Scream list with a bit of tech. Again, Luke Cage is here because, well, we showed you that deck last week, the Abomination High Evolutionary Ajax list. That's one of the top win rate lists in the game. Luke Cage says, okay, let's make that a plus matchup, and let's make all these other Screamers a plus matchup. Meanwhile, Legion gives you ways to just get extra cubes. Your opponent will be playing around Magneto, right? Your opponent's going to be playing around Arrow. You've got a Legion, you've got extra cubes. Beautiful list. Props to Ika for coming up with it. And if you'd like to see more lists from top players every single day, we do 7 videos a week, 7 days a week of videos here on the channel. This week, we're actually going to do 9 videos. We've got top player decks for the new Sanctum Showdown coming tomorrow, along with a review of next week's card, Diamondback. So hit that sub, like, and comment, ring that notification bell if you don't want to miss those. Bottom right-hand corner, that little YouTube-looking thing, if you press it, you're subbed. Do it. Let's go. We will bring you the best content, we promise. In addition, we give away more season passes than everyone. This is our last week of giving away Sam Wilson, Captain America. We gave away 3 Sam Wilsons in yesterday's video. If you missed it and you're not sure if you won, please make sure you check out yesterday's video. It's going over the series drops. I know that it's a couple days late for that. I was on vacation last week, so the series drops were covered as soon as humanly possible thereafter. But if you'd like to see if you won, please make sure you do go check out yesterday's video. And if you'd like to win Sam Wilson now, make sure you sub and like, just like the last slide asked you to. And then later on this video, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. You leave that comment, you are entered to win a season pass. Next up, we've got our last chance review of Redwing. Redwing did not get our usual 18 reviews over the course of the week. We usually review cards a million times over the course of the week in order to get our best thoughts out throughout the week. Sorry we couldn't do that while I was away, but I'm back. I asked everyone, I got all the information. Redwing is a good card. He's not a great card. He's not a must-have card. He's a good card, and he's a good card in particular in one deck. We're going to look at that one deck next. If you don't absolutely need to play that deck, he's a skip. It's that simple. If you want to play this deck we're going to look at next, Redwing is a buy, and if you don't want to play that deck, Redwing is a skip. He's a good card, but not an incredible one. Better than expected, but not like a must-play. He only, again, has one real home. All right, this deck is Husky's Good Bird. Husky has climbed massively with this. He got to rank 11 with the deck we covered last week, and he's climbed much further with this list. This list is a combo list. It is not easy to play, but once you get the hang of it, this one is very, very good at getting extra cubes because it has all sorts of little extra plays that we'll go over as we go over this deck. So you can find Husky at twitch.tv/HuskyPuppies35. Again, one of the top players in Marvel Snap, one of the top deck builders in Marvel Snap. For this version of the list, you need Blink, Redwing, and War Machine. Aranya can be Iron Fist. If you have Aranya and not Ghost Spider, you can put Iron Fist in the Ghost Spider spot. Ghost Spider is significantly better. That's why it's a replacement. The original ones are better. Ghost Spider is, however, dropping to Series 3 relatively soon, in about a week from tomorrow. So, in exactly a week from tomorrow. So, if you don't have Ghost Spider, you can hopefully get that soon. If you don't have Luna Snow, the only replacement is another Series 5 card, unfortunately. Hope Summers. Alioth can be also Series 5 cards, Red Hulk or Gore. You just want a big 6, and there's sort of not that many great big 6s that aren't higher series. And if you don't have Kate Bishop, you're perfectly fine running Cable. Let's go through all the cards and why they're here. So Aranya is absolutely incredible here. As a way to trigger Redwing, you can drop it early, and then on a later turn, something like turn 5, you can end up getting a really, really quick Redwing trigger without having to do anything extra. There's also times on turn 3 when you don't see Electro and Luna, and your deck would otherwise just completely fall apart, and having the ability to just Aranya Redwing that turn and potentially get something big, and you're going to get something big, right? Because that's why you weren't able to play anything in your hand. That is an also extremely powerful play that lets you stay in games. Ghost Spider has much the same synergy, but Ghost Spider won't give you that turn 3 play. What Ghost Spider really ends up adding here is you can use it with Redwing around turn 5 in order to get something going, and then you can blink that off, which is a very, very powerful play. Blink into something stronger from after you activate Redwing. But the other thing Ghost Spider does is around the end of the game, sometimes you have an extra energy because you have War Machine and Electro, or because you have Luna, and you can play a 6-drop. You can also move your turn 5 play. So being able to move that War Machine or that Redwing or whatever the hell you played on turn 5 as a surprise play is often a cube stealer. Ghost Spider is incredibly important for those reasons. Ebony Maw is keyword big. He is the biggest one drop in the game at 1/7. You can play him at the end of the game with Infinite, Magneto, or Alioth. You can also play him sooner with War Machine. If you get War Machine out on turn 5, you can very often, War Machine out on turn 4, you can very often make your turn 5 something like Ebony Maw, Blink and Ebony Maw, which is really, really strong. You don't always want to chuck that Ebony Maw there, but that's fine if you must. You can also play Ebony Maw with Redwing and Ghost Spider at that point, or you can say on the last turn of the game, just go Ebony Maw with Infinite, Ebony Maw with Magneto or Alive. And again, these are very, very powerful plays. You can also just play Ebony Maw early if you're sure you're going to drop a War Machine, and fairly often you are. Kate Bishop is really good here. Is very simply, you want more ones, you want more optionality with ones. That gives you that extra one you can play at the end of the game. It gives you the extra one you can play with Blink, and that grapple arrow is excellent with Redwing. Again, it works fundamentally like a Iron Fist would when you're not running Iron Fist, but you have the extra variability from all the other things that um, that Hawkeye adds for your deck. It also lets you get into some locations. Very, very strong card. I think Kate Bishop's one of the best 2-drops in the game, and hopefully you own her. Electro and Luna are your ramp cards. Luna is better because Luna makes you rely less on War Machine. War Machine lets you get out Infinite, but whatever. You're totally fine if you if you don't see War Machine, you're totally fine playing Luna, and then you can just win the game without worrying about that. You can also blink off Electro, and Electro is better if you're planning on blinking. This way you're not worried about a Red Guardian or anything messing up your snow. But Electro and Luna are your ramp cards, which are both extremely important, largely because you want to do lots of stuff with like ones and blink and Magneto, Infinite, and ones and so on. Redwing, we've talked about with multiple other cards. It synergizes with Kate, with Ghost Spider, with Aranya. You are obviously trying to get Alioth, Magneto, or Infinite out. Although, honestly, getting Blink out isn't the worst thing. Getting War Machine out without having to pay for it is pretty good. If you can get any of those cards out, you're very happy. Once in a while, when I played this list, you're going to hit your Aranyas. You're going to hit your Ghost Spiders. You're going to suffer that way. If you do, you do. You just run for 2. But when you get those big cube gains, you should be able to win for a ton. War Machine is probably the single most important card in the deck. It makes 3 cards that would not otherwise work in this deck work extremely well. Electro, Ebony Maw, and Infinite are here because you have access to War Machine. Access to War Machine is incredibly strong. That's basically the whole gist here, right? Don't be afraid to go Luna or Electro, and if you don't have anything else, you can skip into Infinite, but if you have War Machine, that's never a concern. So that's very, very, very strong, and that's a thing that can win games of Snap. Blink is again, like, you don't want just War Machine as your answer, right? Blink is your other answer to the Electro nonsense, although it doesn't help necessarily with the Maw, and it doesn't help necessarily with it can help with the Infinite if it grabs it. It doesn't help with the draw and Infinite. Blink gives you an extra access to key pieces. It helps you be more likely to see your War Machine, which is again the key piece. And it gets rid of the downside of negative cards while also working very, very well with both Ghost Spider and a potential Kate Bishop arrow. So Blink is extremely important and a very, very cool card. Alive says my opponent's trying to combo. No, they're not. Magneto says my opponent has played cards in these locations. No, they didn't end up big. And Infinite is just the biggest thing. This deck is very reliant on the size of Infinite. You don't need Infinite to win, but the size of Infinite is extremely important to this competing in multiple lanes. So please keep that in mind, that Infinite's keyword of Jai frickin' Gantic is extraordinarily important for this list. If a list is going to get to like 30, 35 power and you've only got Infinite, you're going to lose those games. So try and keep an eye on the power totals for opponents that they could possibly get to. All right, so Husky hit rank 3 with this. This is the general playlines for it. Turn 1, you want Aranya. You will play Maw if War Machine's in hand, but I generally prefer to hold Ebony Maw at that point, because if I have a ramp card, I can always find time for Maw later. Turn 2, Kate Bishop is better than a turn 1 play. Turn 3, you want Luna over Electro over Redwing, although Electro could jump Luna if you're immediately going to blink. If you Redwing, you want Aranya, or you want Bigs in hand and a mover. Cool? Turn 4, you want Blink, and if you're going to blink off Electro, that's fairly often a snap condition. War Machine would be a snap, but we're in an extremely, extremely Enchantress-heavy meta, so if you get that War Machine Enchantress, the deck that can struggle. That's part of why I prefer Blink on turn 4 to War Machine. You can also, on turn 4, if you whiffed, drop a Redwing and a move. If you've got either the Grapple Arrow or Ghost Spider and Redwing, at this point, it is a very good time to do so. You can also, if you played Luna, you can also play War Machine and a 1-drop here to set up Blink and then like an Ebony Maw on the next turn. That's totally fine too. Turn 5, War Machine is better than a 6-drop. If you can just drop a 6-drop here, you're fairly often going to do that. If you but you need to get War Machine out because again, Infinite's extremely important. War Machine on 5 can be. You need to like look at the board. War Machine on 5 can be a snap, but you need to know that Infinite's going to be enough. And generally speaking, I'd also really, really, really like a Ghost Spider to play with that Infinite, so I can move that War Machine somewhere and really steal 2 lanes, unless War Machine made 1 lane so big. A 1 plus Blink is really great here. Again, after a Luna or Electro, if you got that War Machine out, obviously in the case of Electro, a 1 plus Blink here is extremely strong. You can also do Redwing and move just fine here, especially if you don't have War Machine. You're trying to Infinite at that point to win. Turn 6 is pick whichever 6 plus 1 if you have the extra energy, and ideally, most of the time, if you're playing this list, you do. Again, this is the best Redwing deck. This is, in my opinion, the only really, really good Redwing deck. There's a lot of other decks he goes in that I think are either not very good or just better sort of without him. So this is where you want to be with a Redwing deck. Husky's Good Bird is sort of extremely strong, right? This is a very, very powerful list. I don't think it's going to be meta forever, but for right now, like when move bounce is great, this deck sucks. That's how I'd like to put it. If move bounce is great, this deck will fall apart because move bounce will go right over the top. Negative will go right over the top. If those decks are on the downswing, and they are right now because we're running a lot of control pieces, there's a lot of Luke Cage, there's a lot of Mobius, there's a lot of stuff like that to really limit the power ceiling on decks, then all of a sudden that this is a meta deck. And right now, again, Husky is at rank frickin' 3. This is absolutely a meta deck. Hopefully you give it some run. We still got 2 more decks for you, though. But first, please make sure you check out a stream at twitch.tv/pulseglazer. I should be streaming tonight because I did a streamathon yesterday, and I got to stream every day for the week. So I will be streaming tonight. Come check it out. Watch me do some dailies and hang out with me on stream at twitch.tv/pulseglazer. Yeah. In addition, I was away last week. I don't know how y'all did. How was your last week? Did you have a good week? Did you have a rough week? Let me know. Vent if you want to vent. If you want to share triumphs. Let me know how your last week was and answer that in the comments in order to win a season pass. Next up, we've got Pluto. So you should recognize this deck from a KM Best video. 2 days before this was featured in KM Best video, he hit rank 6 with it. Pluto sent this to me, but I was away, and when I tried to reply to Pluto, my terrible hotel Wi-Fi did not reply. So you've probably seen this list. The reason we're featuring this list a little late is because if I don't feature it, I need you to know that this deck exists. This is sort of a descendant of the list that Chamo was in number 1 with at the start of the season, but it's still everywhere right now because Best is a really big creator, and thus this is a very, very popular deck. So this is a really cool deck that I think you should know exists. Cam runs Sam Wilson in that Cable spot, but Cable is perfectly fine if you don't have Sam or vice versa. So you can find Mayor Pluto. He only has 1 video, but at youtube.com/@MayorPluto. He's often a top 100 player. He's basically always a top 100 player. And of course, Cam Best is Cam Best in a Snap on YouTube. Go check him out. He did his top 10 decks in Marvel Snap yesterday, or top tier decks in Marvel Snap yesterday, and that's always a great watch. This deck needs both Zabu and Galacta, Iron Patriot, Gay Bishop, Sam Wilson, and Lasher. I know Lasher seems weird, but Lasher plus Galacta or Gwenpool is just insanely strong. Like, people sleep on that card all the time. Even with 1 buff, it plays as a 2/8, and that's huge. Or a 2/10 if you get the Galacta buff on it. Red Guardian can be Rogue, Shadow King, or Mobius, basically whatever control piece makes most sense for you. Rocking Groot and Copycat are just your generically good 3s, so Gladiator, Negasonic, Luke Cage, so on and so forth. If you don't have Gwenpool, the list really does fall off a fair amount, but you can run Shang-Chi. You fundamentally need to hit Galacta or Gwenpool for this to really have enough power to beat most decks, so keep that in mind. Oops, I missed a card in the turn 6 play. We'll get there. All right, so Cam got to rank 6 with this. Pluto had a 70% win rate with this. This list is awesome. Turn 1, you want Zabu, and if you've got Zabu with all the 4s in deck, that is a snap condition, but you probably want to wait to see another location to snap. However, you are way ahead at that point, even if your opponent doesn't know it. Turn 2 is Iron Patriot over Cable over Kate. Be forewarned, Iron Patriot is a snap condition if he works and you get the right card. If you get an incredibly powerful card with your Iron Patriot and you're able to win that Iron Patriot lane, please snap. If you've got Galacta on turn 3, please snap. If you've got Gwenpool on turn 3, please snap. You'll not, again, snapping, I'm going to say this every time, does not mean I'm automatically going to win this game of Marvel Snap. That is not what Snap says. Snapping says, I believe, based on the matchup, based on what I've drawn, I am now favored, and because I am favored, you have to pay to try and draw out of it. Rocket and Groot is your other turn is your like standard turn 3 play. It can be Copycat, but Copycat is very variable based on what it is. You want to play either one of those on Iron Patriot. Ideally, if it's Rocket and Groot with priority, so it actually goes off. Turn 4, Galacta. Galacta is still a snap condition. Gwenpool, however, no longer is, pending your hand being absolutely incredible. So Galacta over Gwenpool over Captain Marvel. Turn 5 is a 3+2, and that is a snap if you've got a buffed Captain Marvel there. If you've got a buffed Captain Marvel, please snap for the love of God. And then turn 6, Enchantress for Guardian Captain Marvel. Ideally, one of those costs 3, and then you can also throw Juggernaut in there. That's the card I should have put in there. Juggernaut is very often a snap condition at the end of the game. Juggernaut, Red Guard, and Enchantress. If any of those are going to do their thing, right? If you're going to Red Guardian, Iron Man with Prio. If you're going to Enchantress that Iron Man, that Ajax, that Luke Cage with Prio. If you're going to Juggernaut, a lane that they have fundamentally nothing in, and they're a deck that only plays 1 or 2 cards a turn, then you absolutely, absolutely, absolutely should snap. Those are win conditions, and you should take advantage of them anytime you can. Even if it is a later snap here, because you're not representing so much power, people will often sort of stick around with you when they really shouldn't. You want to snap as soon as you realize that happens, ideally before turn 5 as opposed to after turn 5, but this is a deck that can, more than most because it's a control deck, take advantage of those late snaps because people will not respect them nearly as much as they should. Next up, if you'd like to see gameplay from all these lists, please check out the stream team. Today is Monday, so the great Gregor2424 will be streaming at about 12 p.m. Eastern to give all these decks a look. Go check out our friend Gregor. And if you're curious about the upcoming Marvel Snap updates, we do have an OTA this Thursday. Tomorrow will be 2 videos as we cover the Sanctum decks and the new card Diamondback. Then Thursday will be a regular deck day, and then we will cover the OTA. Also, warning for Friday, we'll be doing our top 10 decks in Marvel Snap after the OTA. March 4th is the patch. That patch will have the big series drops in it, so get ready. There is then no OTA that Thursday. The next Thursday we'll have an OTA, then a skip week on the 20th, and then the 27th of March we'll have an OTA. We'll worry about April when we get there. But that is the immediate schedule. Remember, every time there's an OTA, it's a 2-video day. Patches lead to 2-video days, but they are not immediately themselves 2-video days because it can take me an extra little bit in order to get out that, like the next morning will be the data mine video. All right, the combo returns. So you might remember this as a Butt list. Butt loves to play Blink and M'Baku in his zoo list, and then on either on turn 6 you get to go M'Baku into Blink and yell the combo, and then when you yell the combo and you get like Gilgamesh or Mockingbird or whatever, you get to the surprise win, and like it's really really cool. Well, Ordinary Harry, who's one of the biggest streamers around on Marvel Snap, who apparently has a schedule that is exactly opposite mine because I like never run into him. Ordinary Harry created a updated version of this that's got like a super high win rate. So what he fundamentally did was put M'Baku into the auto creator, and M'Baku gave the combo to him, and then he changed like 2 cards. He added like Sam Wilson and something else, and went on to win an absolute ton of games. You can find Ordinary Harry streaming most weekdays at twitch.tv/Ordinary Harry. This deck needs Blink, Gilgamesh, Mockingbird, Marvel Boy, and Sam Wilson. I know that's expensive. Sorry. I'm going to say this because I say this all the time. Please, please, please buy your damn season passes. Consider this game a subscription model if you want to go far in it. Blink is a former season pass. Gilgamesh is a former season pass. And Sam Wilson is a former season pass. Kate Bishop is a former season pass. That is 4 of the high series cards, 4 of the 6 high series cards in this that are former series pass cards, which means if you just buy the damn series pass, you are again so far ahead in playing top meta decks. If you don't have Kate Bishop though, Ant-Man is a totally fine replacement for this one. This has a 65% win rate right now in High Infinite. Snapping with Zoo is sort of complicated. This deck wins a lot, but like you're going to have to wait to snap. You're going to have to read the board and do some counting, unfortunately, if you want to be able to snap effectively. You are basically snapping as soon as you realize that you can get an insanely powerful Gilgamesh to win a lane and an almost free Mockingbird. If you can get those 2 things down, you're usually going to win your games. Turn 1, you want Squirrel Girl over M'Baku. Squirrel Girl is not always the early play for all these lists, but we're in a fairly Killmonger free meta. Unless you're one of the few players still seeing a bunch of mill, you shouldn't be expecting a lot of Killmonger, and thus you can just Squirrel Girl cold here. Turn 2, Sam over Kate over Dazzler. Sam is great. You just start pumping that up immediately. Dazzler gets fairly huge in this, gets about as big as Sam, in fact. And but Sam does it with less extra work if things don't go your way. And then Kate gives you extra ones. Turn 3, you want Marvel Boy over Shauna. Marvel Boy is incredible. It will always, or unless some shenanigans happen, always start buffing that shield at the very least. If you're buffing the shield in M'Baku, you're totally fine. You just played a 3/5. If you don't have Marvel Boy, you're perfectly fine playing Shauna, and if you don't have Shauna, you can play earlier turn stuffs. Turn 4, Kazar is better than Marvel Boy or Shauna and a 1, unless you're planning on playing Blink next turn, and you can play Blink next turn. If you go Shana, for example, with an M'Baku, you can then immediately drop a Blink on that next turn. If you go Marvel Boy and M'Baku, you can then immediately again Blink that next turn, and both of those will mean you probably should have held that Kazar. Marvel Boy is now better. Turn 5, you want Blue Marvel is better than Kazar plus a 1. You can also go Shana plus Dazzler if it's going to give you that free Mockingbird. If you have no major plays, you want Blink on the one from last turn. It's also worth noting that getting Shana out here will give you often that free Mockingbird, right? That's that snap condition. And if you can get but like that's only really really good if you already have out either Marvel or Kazar. You do want to make sure you have one of those two cards out at this point. Turn 6 is usually Gilgamesh and Mockingbird or a 1 plus Blink. Sometimes it's Blue Marvel instead of Gilgamesh on this turn. That's fine. You'll know when. You should be totally fine. This deck puts out a ton of power. Zoo is once more in a really good place. I think Zoo is boring, but a 65% win rate at high infinite is nothing to sneeze at, and thus we cover the deck to show you something powerful you can do in Marvel Snap. Question of the day. We only have one today because it's a big one. Danish, you know Danish, the Hella player, says the American, European, and Asian servers all have different metas at the top of the food chain. Good to know. That is very true. They all have top players who play differently, and each server has its own themes. Why does this happen? So it happens largely. Okay. The Asian meta is its own thing. They tend to just play what most Asian players, from what I've been told, tend to just play whatever they think is the best, most straightforward snap happy decks. It is efficiency based and very, very straightforward. The European meta is varied, but so much of the top of the European meta has sort of migrated away. There's very, very few top European players left in Marvel Snap. The Infinite leaderboard is sort of dominated by Americans, and Americans are very experimental. There are players who play just the most strong, efficient thing in North America, but they are very, very few and far between. In America, people will play a wide variety of stuff and people will experiment, hence the combo and so on. That is the rule of the day, right? Husky's playing his own strange brew right now to rank 3 that we just showed you. That kind of thing happens on the American server. Um, the European server is very close to the American server, partially because they're close geographically, because a lot of the European meta speaks English. They're influenced by a lot of the same content creators. That influence from a lot of the same content creators and a lot of the same top meta ends up being fairly similar. I think the European meta, the top of the European meta, is less varied. You recognize the decks more quickly than you do on the American server, or at least I do. I spent a decent amount of time watching several top Europeans, particularly Sizer and Toxic Soul King. I'm in their streams a lot, and Ika as well is on the European server. And I very often will see just decks I feature, decks I know that they're playing against. It's not quite what I've seen from the Asian server, which is much more conservative, right? There's still enough experimentation there, and they're still like changing quickly, but it's not nearly as much as America, where you're just like, what the hell is that? Fairly often. Um, why does it happen? So again, I think the American content creator meta influences far greater the American and European meta, except the American meta is larger and has a lot of players, I think, who don't have as many of the cards. I think the American meta has a lot of lower CL players and so on. So there's a lot more experimentation, a lot more stuff going on than the European server. And I think there is a baked in. That's what I'm looking for. Baked in conservativeness to the Asian meta for whatever reason. How do I consider these factors in ranking cards and viewing deck stats? Unfortunately, none of the trackers really show me the difference between where decks are played. I almost never get stats from the Asian server unless someone specifically seeks me out. I used to have a bunch of Asia server sources that would send me decks, and now I'm down to like a half of one whenever BBAK has time. So if anyone's on the Asian server and would like to give me information, as my wife sneezes, excuse me, bless you, uh, but if anyone's on the Asian server at near the top 100 of Infinite and would like to give me information and stats, I would absolutely love that. That would be incredibly useful. But like we used to have a million top meta Asian players that would give us information, and now it's sort of a different meta. I do know that the Korean community and I believe the Vietnamese community watch my videos in particular and play a lot of the same decks, but they tend to be younger communities and are playing slightly different stuff. if we ever see global matchmaking introduced, what's my prediction for what happens to the high top infinite meta? I think um, I think if we had global matchmaking, a lot of the European meta would come back in force. I genuinely often think that the top technical players in the game are the European meta. I don't know why that's the case, but I think the best European players are the best technical players in the world. Um, Part of that, though, is a lot of the best American players love to play some weird jank shit, and the best European players are more likely to just say, I'm just going to play the best shit. Um, we have had several Johnson Cups. Johnson is a Korean player. They just won the big Chinese tournament. They won like $7,000. It was Johnson, BBAK, um, I believe RS Berry, a few others, and they won the big Chinese server meta thing, which is really really cool, right? So props to them. But in the Johnson Cup, they weren't as able to compete with the top European meta. So I think that the European meta's efficiency in top level play and top deck choice would beat out the Americans and the Asian server. At least that's what experience has taught us. I think that we would sort of normalize into the European meta more than the American or the Asian if there were global matchmaking, largely because you'd be able to experiment less. Because if you're playing only top players and those top players are all playing better decks, the better decks are fairly more likely to win, right? While I don't think like if it becomes too much like the Asian meta, that just becomes counterable. Like every deck in Marvel Snap is counterable, and if it becomes too much, that becomes counterable. But if you're too experimental, the hyper efficient thing eats you. So that's where my working assumption as to where this goes ends up. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna get yelled at in the comments, but that's my honest opinion for where this ends up. I think right now, bluntly, the American meta is running away with the best in the world. Again, a ton of top European players have stopped playing and stopped really competing. Um, and a bunch of and the Asian server is fairly homogenous as far as I've been told, as far as I'm aware. So I think the American meta right now is absolutely tops in the world. But I think if we had global, and I think that would lead to a larger return of the European meta, which would in turn lead to a them being the best again, as they were for quite a while earlier in the game's life cycle. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon, and we have a Patreon at patreon.com/snapjudgments, come with on-air thanks. So I'm going to say thank you to a whole bunch of people. Ocularis, our patron of the month for February. We have our March one coming up soon. Thank you to Abigail Giesland, Mandatory Burnout, Irregardless, LAB, Inc., I Am Frostman, Hota Navarrete, Thinking Poker, Primed Ryan, Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Kertix Lee, Koire, Kazushi, Archangel 3K, Black Dahlia, Perifros, The Goat Seeker, Hollowed, Nightmare, Only Fox, Synth, Fat Nick, Dirty, Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, Cables, Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, who won on the stream, The Bizza, Black Jeebus 23, Extra C, and Skippy G, Jessica Gamble, Slush Death, The King of Bros, The Great Kazoo, Werewolf, Kevsey Hoda, Luna Chris, Clam, Colonel Forbin, Rob Silverman, M. Holland, David G. Wingfield, Stephen, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B., Mr. Craig Sterry, Matt V., Ren Wrench, Corbin, John Q., Jimmy McQ, Q Down, You Stout, 8th Sage, 1 Big Man, Milkman for Reels, Cactus Jack, BG, Quid Pro Joe, Snap Decision Joe, Mod Supreme Models, The Green Goblin, Unibot, what's up, Uni, Flan 56, The Fuzzy Dump, Spectrumix, Hoot, Absolute Shannon, who will be our patron of the next month. Thank you so much, Shannon. Matt H., DJ, Mikey, Hijinks, don't forget to claim your win. Also, DJ Mikey Hijinks, thank you for the gifted earlier today. Also, thank you, Synth. Oh, God, I don't want to have to go back and thank everyone. I just realized I should have done that. Thank you, everyone who hung out on the stream today. We had a ridiculously good time for like a 6-hour stream with a ridiculous amount of giveaways and fun. Thank you all so much. No frickin' flex, Nick the Greek Geek, who did all the tech support today. Thank you so much, Nick, for modding the shit out of the chat. Zadrex, King of Canada, thanks for hanging. Den Man Falcon, up Den Man, Thorn Newman, Jonesy, Two Ties, the great Leonard Des, the Pirate King Tucker. Go check out Tuck, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for I'll see you twice tomorrow. And that's a good sign, because peace.